Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly edition of The Wrap. I'm Laura Leslie, WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief.
I'm Travis Fain, one of WRAL's state government reporters.
And we are wrapping up the year. It's the special holiday edition. I don't think Festivus.
Yeah, I feel like we have an airing of grievances on almost every show.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's not special. Big news this week, obviously, the federal lawsuit filed by the NAACP. There are a couple other lawsuits already out there. This one was by far the most comprehensive, challenging the new maps, all three sets. This time on the same grounds that they challenged the 2011 ones, basically, because saying that they disadvantaged black voters because they packed some of them into districts that are disproportionately African American while cracking other communities up into largely white Republican districts, thereby making them politically not very powerful.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the courts do with it. I mean, obviously, the question is, it seems like the argument against this lawsuit is going to be, well, yeah, we did some of that stuff, but we did it because we wanted a partisan gain. It wasn't racist. It wasn't racially motivated.
That didn't work in Alabama.
Well, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, this area of the law has obviously shifted a little bit because of partisan gerrymandering being legal now, particularly in North Carolina, and what that means for a racial gerrymandering lawsuit in North Carolina, I don't know that we fully know yet.
I don't think we can because, I mean, it looked like the Supreme Court was kind of going one direction in the Alabama case this year when they really, kind of called them to task for doing exactly what our lawmakers did. And then, but the South Carolina case they seemed a lot more skeptical about that one. So I don't know that there's a shoe-in on racial gerrymandering either.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a shoo-in, and I think you mentioned this is a federal lawsuit, so it'll work its way through the federal courts, and of course those things tend to take time. This is a 2026 argument election cycle, not a 2024. I don't think there was a request for an injunction.
No.
So this is not something that's going to change 2024.
There was a request. One of the prayers for relief was to put a hold on, enjoin the maps used,
okay.
But they know that that's, basically the point they were making is we know that that's not going to happen for 2024 because it's just too close. They've already finished candidate filing. So, but for 2026,
something to look forward to,
Something
Laura.
to look forward to. I can't wait. Another redistricting lawsuit. Whew.
Well, another 3 redistricting.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Redistricting lawsuits. So.
Anyway, okay. So, coming up also, child care liaison at the Department of Commerce. I thought this was kind of interesting. We got this release that they were creating this position. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that. It's an outside group of funders, basically a collaborative of funders, is basically paying for most of this person's salary. The State Commerce Department and HHS are basically paying for the rest of it.
Yeah, and this is an issue that is going to be an issue throughout 2024 and going forward. We have kind of got a broken childcare system, like daycare system in this country, and big business has taken notice of it because they're like, hey, we are having trouble hiring people because some of them are staying home with their children, which of course is a concept that from time immemorial, but
right.
The economy doesn't quite work that way anymore. And I mean, those of you who are single income families understand how difficult that can be in this world. Whether it's companies taking on more of this burden, government subsidizing daycare more, in North Carolina, all the pandemic money that has helped kind of juice salaries, because I mean, if you can go and make $15 an hour at McDonald's and $14.75 taking care of 3-year-olds, which one you going to pick? So we've juiced those salaries a little bit with some pandemic era money from Congress that is running out in North Carolina. I believe in July, we hit what people are going to call a cliff. A lot of expectation that daycares straight up close.
They already are straight
right.
up closing. Like 3 of them closed in October in Western North Carolina. It left like 300 kids with nowhere to go. So, I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is going to be more on the radar next year. I feel like the NC Chamber of Commerce has a whole sort of area devoted to this. So it is a big problem.
The North Carolina Chamber of Commerce said this year, so 2023, during the legislative session, that they would rather have state government money, hundreds of millions of dollars to fix this issue than they would tax cuts. Further corporate tax cuts, which are already planned and baked into. And of course, Senate Republicans were like, well, what if we just do the tax cuts, though? And that's kind of what they did. But so, I mean, that just kind of speaks to how big of an issue
This deal is.
this
Right.
is. Yeah.
So, what they're thinking, Secretary Sanders is thinking is that, this could help us because this person is going to work with new companies coming in. They're looking at the state and kind of at the beginning of that process to figure out what they can do to deal with this problem, whether that means maybe opening a work-based childcare or offering subsidies to employees who need it. But, something we're working with philanthropic groups, nonprofits, churches, whatever, to try to make sure that they have capacity for the kind of childcare they would need.
Right. This group's got a location. This group's got the money.
Yep.
The parents are going to put some money into, and it just you kind of put it all together. Maybe it's a local government that provides the location, the company, and the parents pay for the money. There's a model I want to say in Michigan. And now I'm going off the top of my head. I've written about it before, but I don't remember. Called Try Share, something like that.
Yeah.
That is kind of a model that people are looking at. You can Google that, even though it may not have given you the right term.
I think that sounds familiar, though. I think that's right. So anyway, today also this week, President Trump kicked off the ballot in Colorado by the Supreme Court there. Speaker Moore, who is of course running for Congress, and Gray Mills, also running for Congress, he's running for Congress in McHenry's old district. He is, I believe. And so the two of them are now saying, gee, maybe we should do something about passing a law to make sure that Trump can't get kicked off the ballot here.
Yeah, maybe here's an opportunity to pander, and guess what it is? Our state board of elections voted the other way on this to keep Trump on the ballot. I mean, the accusation is that
that's not exactly right. They voted not to consider it at this point.
And it may come back up. But, I mean, the accusation is that Donald J. Trump participated in an insurrection against the United States of America on January 6th, when obviously he's speechifying and a mob attacks the state capitol, and some of them are, indicating they want to hang the vice president of the United States. Obviously, lots of charges came out of that, including some for the president himself. And this is the argument that was made against former Congressman Madison Cawthorn to try to keep him off the ballot. It was unsuccessful, and this is just another round of that fight. But, I mean, basically the bill that Speaker Tim Moore and Gray Mills, who, I said they were pandering, but I'm sure they have some strong feelings on this regardless of how it plays with their voting base. The way I understood it is they would say, "No, you gotta." They didn't even release language or say like what it would say. They're just like, "We should do something about this, and we probably will." I think was the upshot there.
Yeah, I think what they were talking about doing, what we got, which was very little detail, was along the lines of, the State Board of Elections would not have the authority to disqualify a federal candidate.
Yeah, and I don't know how you square the circle there with federalism.
I don't either. Because it's the Constitution. I mean, they gotta. I don't know.
While we're at it, Joe Biden will be the only Democrat on the ballot for president here. I saw another candidate is pushing back against that, trying to get some reconsideration, but that was a decision that the State Board of Elections made this week as well. The Democratic Party had wanted it that way. That was not, of the state boards.
They basically said the other couple that are running are not serious and are not really campaigning here, and so this,
right.
There's no reason to do that.
They failed to pass the "Have I heard of you" test, I think, was the problem.
You can make that argument about 7 or 8 of the Republicans, though, I think, right? Anyway.
That's fair.
Anyhow, okay. And then another challenge this week filed by, I'm sorry, I'm having...
Scott Lasseter.
Thank you.
Scott Lasseter, who you may remember as the man who filed a lawsuit against Speaker of the House Tim Moore.
Yes.
Because Speaker of the House Tim Moore was having... I guess affair is the right word, although there was some, Scott Lasseter's estranged wife, or he is the estranged husband is probably the better way to put it. Tim Moore and she were having a relationship.
I'm not sure you can really call it an affair.
Yeah, I've struggled with that word because technically it's right. They were married, but I mean...
Anyway. So he's running for the state Senate district that Lisa Grafstein is running. That is Lisa Grafstein.
Scott Lasseter is, yes.
Right. So if you remember, they moved Senator Grafstein's district away from where she lived. So she had to move to be able to run in the new district in 2024. But that moves her out of the current district where she serves right now in 2023. And he says, well, which one is it? You can serve now or you can run later, but you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, she set up a catch-22 for herself, kind of, and he is filed with the Wake County Board of Elections to try. The way he would put it is to make sure that she's qualified to run. The way I would put it is to try to get her kicked off the ballot.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, the state constitution is what controls this, and it's kind of interesting because the state constitution says that the House and Senate will be the sole judge of their membership. Each House shall be the judge of the qualifications and elections of its own members. That means Lisa Grafstein, even though she doesn't live in the district she represents right now, because she's moved for the next election, and she's still, we're still in this term. Unless the Senate kicks her out, she continues. Wake County Board of Elections has no say on that, as far as I know. Neither does the State Board of Elections. It is a state Senate question, and Senate Leader Phil Berger has said we're probably not going to do anything about that.
Yeah, the only gay member, the only Jewish member, it's not the best look.
No, it's definitely not. And then what the state constitution's, all it really says that I've seen is that each senator at the time of their election shall have resided in the district for which he is chosen. Of course, it says he as opposed to she. For which he is chosen for 1 year immediately preceding his election. I don't know that I'm seeing in there that you have to continue to live in there. There are probably some legal scholars who can speak to that a little bit better. But as far as getting her off the ballot, the only question seems to be, did she move to this district at least 1 year before the election? Which, she was double bunked with Senator Jay Chaudhary in October. She said basically the next day, hey, I'm moving. And I assume did so post haste and will meet that 1 year deadline that I would think the Board of Elections would judge on there. But
yeah,
I don't know. This is not an area of law that I'm, like so many things, not an area that I'm a super expert in.
Did not even stay in a Holiday Inn last night.
Yeah, but I'll talk about it for 2 minutes on a podcast.
Anyway,
that's for sure.
So Governor commuting a few sentences and pardons, but not as many as people were hoping.
Commuted one sentence and then 4 pardons where they're people who have served their time and they've been productive members of society. One guy served in the Army and 2 tours, I think, in Iraq. Bronze Star. One guy went to school, got a master's degree, got a PhD. And this is from the governor's office, and now conducts advanced scientific research related to regenerative medicine. And he's 43 years old and had been convicted of selling cocaine in 2002. So you can turn your life around, and that's what these kind of pardons are for, is to wipe it off your record.
Yeah.
The commuted sentence is a guy named Darnell Cherry. I assume it's spelled Cherry. I assume that's how it's pronounced. He's 42 years old, Bertie County. He's been in prison his whole adult life because when he was 16, he was involved in a murder, 2 robberies and a murder. He was supposed to get out of prison in 2035, but there's something in the state called the Juvenile Sentence Review Board, and it looks at cases like this where you did something when you were young. Are you still dangerous? Should we let you out? Should we have mercy? And the review board asked the governor to commute a sentence, and Cooper did. But you're right. The governor has not commuted a lot of sentences. There's a push.
He's a former attorney general. And those people, people in that sort of line of work are going to naturally be, I think, on the side of the prosecutors.
Yeah, and if you've driven by the mansion recently, or I think in any December of the governor's at least second term, you've seen maybe people sitting outside with signs pushing him to commute more sentences. He is getting some pressure right now to commute the sentence of every person on death row. There's 100-something people. We have what essentially amounts to a moratorium on executions, but there is a lot of pressure, or a big push at least, on the governor to commute those to life in prison or some such, so that the state isn't executing people going forward. I don't know that it would be out of character for Governor Roy Cooper to do that.
I agree.
But he is going into the last year. He's term limited. So we'll see. If check back, I guess, this time next year. Christmas next year, if that's going to happen or anything like it. But it would be very out of character.
So stories of the year, we won't spend a lot of time talking about them. I asked Tim Moore what he thought the crowning accomplishment was of the year. He said the budget, not Medicaid expansion. Interesting.
They always say the budget.
But he also put up the women's sports law.
Which limits transgender youth participation in sports. I don't know that if I'm going 1 and 2, it's budget, and then, hey, we did this thing that affects 0.00001% of high school students.
Medicaid expansion seems like a little bit bigger to me.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe he was, because Medicaid was triggered by the budget, he puts it in there. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
So that obviously was the big one. The governor gets a little victory lap on that one. And so do lawmakers, frankly. and the abortion law. That was certainly one of the bigger stories of the year.
Yeah, big healthcare session. We got the abortion law. We got a change in the way Blue Cross Blue Shield can organize itself, the way it's structured. It gets to move money around. We got Medicaid expansion, which is, I mean, something like 580, 600,000 people in the coming months will have health insurance, probably a lot of them for the first time ever in their life. They will be able to go to the doctor without, worrying about how do I pay for this, which as someone kind of changing careers right now and looking at how I make all the money work and what insurance costs, I mean, it's huge. It's huge to just not have that hanging over your head in your life, that, hey, what happens if I get sick or So that's big. And like you said, big win for the governor there, but it became kind of a Republican issue by the time we were all said and done with it, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. So another really big story, Representative Tricia Cotham's party switch.
That was a surprise.
Yeah, and had ramifications. You go from being one vote shy of passing anything you want to being 0 votes shy of passing anything you want and being able to do it. So that was...
It probably enabled quite a bit of legislation this year that might not otherwise have gotten taken up.
Right.
I'm thinking about some of the social conservative, religious conservative bills that were taken up this year. Another big guy with a big year, Patrick McHenry, became speaker and then quit.
Yeah, briefly was interim Speaker of the House, slammed the gavel real hard. Richard Hudson grabbing that guy by the mouth. I think it was Mike Rogers out of Alabama on the night. That was earlier before McHenry was in the picture.
Yeah.
That people may remember. But yeah, McHenry, I still don't quite understand why he retired after all this, but Congress is a mess, and that's probably good enough.
If you're the kind of person who's in Congress to actually get things done as opposed to be on cable news, it's probably pretty frustrating, I would think, to be in there right now, because they're not getting a whole lot done, that's for sure.
The big story we mentioned earlier, Tim Moore's affair. That hit the airwaves big time in the headlines. Beth Wood, State Auditor Beth Wood.
That's right.
She, in December, I guess, of last year, 2022, was in that little accident in downtown Raleigh, and then the fallout from that. She's not running for re-election anymore. She's not a state auditor anymore. No. She ended up having to resign a little early. So that was quite the saga.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was definitely a lucky day for Jessica Holmes.
Right. Jessica Holmes, who is Governor Roy Cooper's, was his pick to become state auditor. So she's state auditor now. She's running for election in 2024 to win a full 4-year term, and is the only Democrat, I believe, running. So big deal for her. Casinos, part of that budget battle.
Casinos. That was, to me, like the story that it was Schrodinger's story. It wasn't. Couldn't even get a copy of a bill. It was all behind closed doors. Everybody's, oh, no, that's not what's holding up the budget. Well, of course it was what was holding up the budget,
Right. If you're looking back on this year and you're like, well, what was the most impactful thing that happened? Medicaid expansion, I think. If you're asking me what 5 years from now I will remember about this session, the first answer will be, I won't, because it'll all blend together. But if you remind me what happened this session, to me, it'll be the casino battle, because that was like a day-to-day thing of like, will we or won't we?
Yeah.
What are we going to do on casinos? And then the other one that kind of defines the session, a marker in time, if you will be Tricia Cotham's flip. I think that's the two things that I will remember the 2023 legislative year for.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the casino saga was especially, I guess, important because it was the first time, I think, that we've really seen Berger go to the mat for something and not win it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he typically the Senate kind of rolls roughshod over the House. I mean, they tend to get what they want in the budget battles. But this one was, this year was an exception to that. So, and really kind of, blinked. So that was really interesting.
And it'll come back in 2024,
of course. Of course.
Who won NC poll in 2023? Who had the most success? And I know who my answer is eventually here, but let's noodle on this a bit.
Well, Biscuitville?
Biscuitville.
No, I'm kidding.
Biscuitville did well.
Yeah, Biscuitville did just fine this year. And Anderson Clayton gets a little bit of credit.
Yeah, I agree with
for
that.
this. She wasn't supposed to get elected. She did in February.
Head of the Democratic Party.
That's right.
Governor Roy Cooper.
Youngest state party director in the country.
Governor Roy Cooper and the other kind of establishment folks had backed her opponent, but she won. And I feel like candidate recruitment went pretty well.
I don't know. There was that one time on Twitter at the last day of filing when she tweeted, "Does anybody in Lee County want to run?" And I was like, this cannot be your best recruitment strategy.
Turned out, though, this is per Carolina Ford, which is an advocacy group. Apparently, Democrats have candidates in all but 2 House districts in the legislature, so all 50 Senate districts, 118 of 120 House districts. Republicans left 8 Senate and 25 House seats open. Per Carolina Ford. That time will tell how candidate recruitment went. You can't just recruit anybody.
But you can.
It's true.
You technically can if they live there and they're old enough and they're a registered voter.
Hey, if they're in Lee County the day before the deadline, you can.
I don't know. I mean, there's putting a name on the ballot, and then there's actually campaigning.
And the deck's stacked against you from the word go, right? Like you've got not only the maps that are likely partisan gerrymanders, even though that's okay now, I guess. Even without gerrymandered maps, or with maps where the court said it wasn't an illegal gerrymander, which was the case for this past cycle, look what happened to Democrats. It didn't go great. It didn't go well for them.
But on the other hand, it was a pretty good year, 2023. In terms of municipal elections, Democrats did quite well on that. So she gets a little bit of a win on that one, too. So
Right. I think young in her career, and we'll see what 2024 brings. But 2023, good year for her.
I will say she has more energy in that role than anybody I have seen run the Democratic Party in this state since 2004.
And that's important in that job.
Yeah,
that's important in that job,
especially when you're under the thumb, when you're a super minority. It's like, you're gonna need that.
Yeah, somebody bring the room up, please.
Right. So Cooper, he did get the Medicaid expansion. He's been pushing for since 15, 14.
I mean, let's just say forever.
Yeah, forever.
I mean, let's just assume he was pushing for it as Attorney General too, and. And we do a thing every year called the Promise Tracker, and we rank the governor on whether or not how he's doing on things that he talked about during the campaign. One of them was Medicaid expansion. Obviously, he's achieved that this year. 2 others, I won't reveal them. We'll talk about that another time. This is going to come out, our Promise Tracker update, December 31st. But 2 other campaign promises that in our judgment, he has achieved this year. So, economic development's doing great.
He had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Pretty good year. He got a name out there, people talking about him as possibly a president, vice presidential cabinet pick kind of person, although he's kind of downplayed that.
Right, as one would. But, I mean, clearly whatever is next for Roy Cooper after 2024.
Something is.
Yeah, the world is his oyster. And
we also learned how to pronounce his name. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, right.
Cooper.
So the best way to do it is to say Cooker and then
Cooper. Yeah.
Cooper. I can do it now, Governor.
If you're from Eastern North Carolina, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That Patrick McHenry we mentioned earlier, he kind of put his name in the hat for who won 2023. I mean, anytime you're retired from Congress and you didn't have
you got to be
that's good.
Speaker. I mean, that was a big deal. And you know what? By all accounts, people really respected him and he did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I mean, he's
obviously had a sense of humor about it.
He's politics famous nationally in the United States now. I'm sure he's got a great gig going. So
will.
Throw him in there. Cody Kinsley, Secretary of
He had a really good year.
Health and Human Services. His hair is almost his year was almost as good as his hair.
Nah.
He
I miss the mane, He's much more trimmed down now.
He has trimmed the hair down there, but it is still pretty fabulous. It's pretty fantastic. But I mean, look, so he gets Medicaid expansion through on his watch. He is heavily respected by Republicans and Democrats alike. I mean, and that's not always a given.
Oh no,
in a Democratic administration. But I mean, Cody Kinsley is highly respected. His
even
future,
in a Republican administration, it's not.
Right. His
Remember Aldana Voss?
His future seems exceedingly bright. Destin Hall, state representative, likely next Speaker of the House after Tim Moore.
That's what we're told.
Goes to Congress. So I mean, that's assuming that holds, and I think it will. That's a good 2023 for him. All
right. Well, I think. I don't know. I think you got to argue for Tim Moore on that.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like if you're asking me who won 2023 in NC Poll World,
Tim Moore.
Well, Tim Moore, I think, is my ultimate choice. But my second choice, Chess and Addison McDowell, if we're going to talk about lobbyists. So Addison McDowell, lobbyist for Blue Cross Blue Shield. We talked about how they got a big major structural change they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chess McDowell, he and his folks at Kilpatrick Townsend, the law firm that he worked for, their entire lobbying team left. They're starting their own business. I'm sure they're going to make a lot more money. But the big cherry on the top, and it's a huge one, is Chess and Addison McDowell are down at Mar-a-Lago, and Donald Trump endorses Addison for a congressional run in the 6th district.
He hadn't even filed yet.
Hadn't filed. Nobody knew he was running. Now he's got the former president of the United States endorsing him. So that's pretty good 2023 right there. But yeah, I think we're both. I think Tim Moore won 2023, y'all.
Yeah, I do too. Because I mean, look, he got his district.
His congressional district.
His congressional district. And then when he was going to have what looked like a reasonably tough primary challenger, Patrick McHenry suddenly resigned from Congress, and the challenger suddenly decided he'd rather run in that district.
Right. And Moore survived the whole affair thing.
Yep. Teflon.
I mean, it was like a month of having to answer questions, and then it was just like, all right, I guess, yeah, just keep it moving here. He either didn't want casinos or couldn't get the votes for him in the House. And then the Senate backed off on that. So, I mean, I still think the Senate got more of what it wanted in the budget than probably the House did. But who knows what Tim Moore wants, half the time. So, I mean.
And we learned this week he's going to continue to serve as Speaker through the end of next year.
Right.
I kind of thought that once the campaign was underway, that he might, basically step down as Speaker, continue to serve.
Right.
But step down as Speaker. But he said, no, he's going to continue to serve till the end of 2024. He said he can, the primary is going to come before they go into session. And the bulk of the campaigning won't be until after they're done with session. I assume that means this will be an extraordinarily short session. But yeah, we'll continue to serve. So there you go.
Yeah. I guess well done. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
supermajority.
When some of it is we didn't think your affair hurt you enough, that's victory has got a lot of definitions.
Look, this is politics, man. Affairs just don't resonate the way they used to.
Yeah. I mean, consensual and the whole thing was a mess.
Yeah. That's what I got.
That's what I got. I hope you feel at home, listener, that you won 2023, and if not, well, good luck in 2024, I guess.
Anyway, in all seriousness, we wish everybody out there a very happy holiday season. May all your wishes come true, and you get to spend some time with the people that you love the most. And we hope you'll join us again next week here on The Wrap.